Steve, have you ever heard of somebody calling people and saying that your grandson is in jail and you need to give money or gift cards to help get him out of jail?
I have. I actually was shopping in a store and I overheard a person asking to get $5,000 on gift cards.
I know. I remember you telling me that you mentioned to him that you had just heard of this scam and you tried to tell him that that didn't sound right.
It was very strange, and he just kept saying that it was for his grandson, to get his grandson out of jail. And the funny thing is, I saw a news story about that, the same person, that night.
Yes, unfortunately, he lost $5,000 in trying to help his grandson. Steve tried to warn him, but he was so worked up and anxious, he wasn't listening, and he just thought, I've got to get my grandson out of jail. Now, I always questioned this and thought, if our grandson's in jail, he did something wrong and he needs to be there.
That's right. And he's only 3.
So we would know it's a scam if someone called us and told us our grandson is in jail.
Right. So the whole point is that as you get older, more people want to take your money from you and not provide a product or service.
I'm Sue.
And I'm Steve, and we're aging joyfully.
Elder fraud abuse, that includes people 60 years of age and older, costs $966 million in 2020.
Wow, that's a lot. And that's why when you get a phone call and it seems suspicious, it probably is. I mean, you got to think, who is calling you and asking for money? If there's a situation when you get a phone call and says your grandson, daughter, your kid, somebody that you're close to is in jail and needs this money, something suspicious about that.
But there's many forms of abuse. There's many well-known scams, and they're always creating new ones every day. We're going to talk about some of the potential scams and some of the feelings, if you're caught in one, of what you may feel, and some ways to maybe prevent being caught in one of these scams. Steve grew up in a large city, so he learned from birth how to be street smart, whereas I grew up in more of an idyllic neighborhood where we didn't even lock our doors. Steve always says I have that Midwestern innocence, that I'm not aware of things. But now that we live in a big city, I have learned a lot. We've lived in many different states, but this state that we currently live in has been one area that mail has been stolen many times. Not from us personally, but many times from the mailbox in front of your home. When you mail a check, the mail is stolen and the check is bleached out and the amount is changed. So I am reluctant to even put anything out in the mailbox. Even though we rarely even use checks today, they look for gift cards and other things. So it is challenging just to even mail things in front of our own house.
Yeah, you have to watch out for there's scams of all types, and the mailbox, stealing checks and bleaching them out is an old scam that's gone on for a long time, and criminals can be very successful with doing that.
There are many different categories of ways to scam people. I'm not saying that we can't be scammed. As vigilant as we are, as you become older or distracted with other things, or the scammers are really getting good, of course it can always happen, but we try to remain vigilant. So we're going to tell you some of the categories. The first one is
electronics or technology scams. That happens sometimes without even you knowing it. And one of the biggest ones is where you open up an email and you click on a link that you think is something that's going to benefit you. And it turns out that before you know it, you're providing personal information to a scammer who is going to use that information to get into your bank accounts and to actually portray themselves as you. And so that's why you can't click and open links in email. It's become very sophisticated.
Even if you get something from someone you know, my brother's phone gets hacked constantly, and we're always getting odd emails or messages, and every time I contact him, he said, yeah, it wasn't him. But it happens over and over again. It's always the same brother, so now I know to look for that.
Yeah, and you know, you have to be careful too when
This big category is under tech support scam. This actually happened to my sister.
Yeah, she was surfing on the internet, and there was a pop-up screen, and it said that your computer has been infected, and call this phone number to clean out the viruses that are on your computer. And so she called the phone number because it all seemed very real, and it was supposedly a tech support, and they wanted $200 to clean out her computer. So somebody had hacked into her computer through her IP address and was able to control it to where she couldn't access anything. And so she gave them $200 and some, and then her computer worked again. And it was just, she told me about it, and I said, wow, that's one of the oldest scams, because that's been out there for quite a while. And if you're on the internet, you may see that pop up at some point, and just bypass it, turn your computer off, and turn it back on, and chances are it won't be there. Clear out your cache on your computer, and you should do that anyway on a regular basis.
And did she had no spyware or protection on her computer, and you then
Right.
added that?
Yeah, and so that's real important too. You can get firewalls and spyware protection against viruses, and it's usually free. So you can look on the internet for that, but you got to be careful with that too. Microsoft, if you use Microsoft Windows, they offer a real good security program, and you can most of the time trust it since it's from Microsoft.
The second category involves romance scams. This is where you may be divorced and looking for a new person to date. That's understandable. It's hard to meet people, and you go on a website. There's been many scammers going on there who wipe out women. It's a lot of time women. I guess it could be men too, but they wipe out their bank accounts. Now, I was involved in this to a certain degree. I am not looking for anyone. We've been happily married for years. But I received a letter in the mail one day randomly from an old classmate from college. Now, what was odd was he used my legal name when everybody who knows me knows I'm Sue. So Steve opened the letter thinking it was another scam or sales letter, and it was from a guy I had gone on one date with who said he had thought about me for over 30 years. That was troubling, because what did he want? He also mentioned that he had sold his business because of that pandemic, but I believe it actually failed because he had a moving company that nobody was moving during the pandemic. He said he recognized that I was married, but didn't say what he wanted. He gave me his work phone number. Every red flag is there. I mean, he sought me for 30 years?
Yeah.
Okay. That to me says that he probably wanted some money.
Absolutely. I mean, times are tough for a lot of people, and so more and more scams are popping up in different ways, and it's kind of like you really can't trust anything that you get in this electronic age. I mean, things are just, it's made so simple now with your cell phones and the internet, whether you're on your phone or you're on a laptop or desktop. It's just so easy to scam people. And these scams have been going on for a long time, and they've just really gotten pretty bad.
Another scam that Steve's going to briefly discuss is an old telemarketing scam.
Right. Well, we used to get phone calls at dinner time from telemarketers, which doesn't really happen anymore because of our cell phones. We can always block out a call. But this old telemarketing scam was for the Police Benevolent League or for fallen policemen, firemen. And actually, there's a documentary on HBO about it. And it was so prevalent, they were raising millions and millions of dollars a day. And this was a fake scam. I mean, this was a scam. So it was not a real organization. I think they sent you a sticker when you donated. And they had these rooms with telemarketers, people calling, And it was just strange that all of that was a scam. And that recently had come out where, people thought that they were donating to families of fallen policemen and firemen, and really that's one of the worst scams.
But they did actually have real groups, didn't they, that collected for those things?
No, they really didn't.
They had no groups because I remember when we lived in Alabama, we got those calls. I got those calls on a monthly basis.
Yeah, no, it was
and
all...
the people were pretty aggressive.
Yes, and no, that was all fake. They didn't have any of that. Towards the end, there was, for a short time, where money did go to police organizations, but it was very little. They were only paying a small percentage. About 10% of what they raised went to police organizations, and they were forced to do that. I believe it was by the state of New York or New Jersey. You can watch that documentary, and it's very interesting what went on.
So you're saying, I'm sure some people are going to reply that they work for police or fire or something, and they did have real fundraisers, legitimate ones.
And those were mostly ones where they were in person, like when you're stopped at a light on a crowded street and a fireman's walking down the street collecting money in a hat. That's real.
Although today anybody could get a fake uniform. It's pretty scary, the extremes that people can go to. Okay, so here's some other categories. The next category is government impersonation scams. That could be Medicare, IRS, or Social Security. As we're aging, we're all investigating Social Security and Medicare and what to do. And then there's IRS, where you may get a letter. There actually, the time I did get a phone call from someone saying that they were from the IRS and that we owed money, and I believed it. I was scared. And as we were investigating, well, it turns out I did get a letter in the mail. I actually did make a mistake on our taxes one year. It was a legitimate mistake. We had transferred money from one IRA to a 401k, but the company never gave us the correct paperwork, so we never submitted the paperwork, so they said we owed taxes. However, the person who called me was not from the IRS. They were trying to get that tax money, but we really didn't owe it once we gave the right paperwork. So they had access. This is what was scary. They actually had access that we did have a case with the IRS, but the IRS doesn't call you or use emails. It always comes in direct mail.
A good lesson there is that if you get a phone call from someone who says they're from the IRS and you need to put X amount of money into this account, don't listen to it. IRS will contact you by mail, not by email, not by phone calls.
Well, the IRS isn't going to demand money. It was a paperwork error, and of course they're going to clarify. They do give you a time limit to clarify. They lay it all out that this is what was wrong, and this is how much time you have before they do assess money. They never call demanding money. So there's one that we could have easily fallen into, but thankfully the letter from the IRS came quickly after that phone call.
Exactly.
The next category is dealing with fake prizes. This is where you get a phone call that you have won this wonderful prize, but you need to give money first to get that prize.
Exactly. So they may say that you give us $100 and we'll give you $1,000 or something similar to that. Or you have to pay postage. So they may say we have $1,000 value gift for you, but you have to send us $100 or some astronomical amount to get this prize so they can ship it to you. Something like that. Big scam.
The big red flag is you never entered the contest. How did you win without even entering a contest? The next one involves home repairs or home maintenance. The big one in our area is the pine straw scam. This is going on all the time. We see it on Nextdoor app that people have been taken on a monthly basis on this one.
Sure, it's where they come out to your house and so you tell them I'll take 20 bales or 15 bales or 5 bales, and they put out 5 times that amount, and then they force you to have to pay for that because they put it out, but that's not what you told them. And then you can argue back and forth with them, but they're not going to leave your house until they get that money.
they get very threatening. Now, when we ordered Pine Straw, we said we just want the bales. We will put it out ourselves. You count the bales and pay for it. The next category is elderly caregiver fraud. This is where you have a caregiver for an elderly person who may be lacking physically or cognitively. So they're not in the shape or form to really, this is an easy one for them to fall into. This is where grown children might want to step in and try to oversee. And it's a touchy subject because our father, my father did get cancer and it went to his brain. So at that point he was not thinking clearly. And he did need a caregiver. My brother was very leery of getting a caregiver because of this common scam where they will get the person to sign over all of their assets to the caregiver.
Yeah, they may spend some time with the caregiver, and then the caregiver gains their confidence and they feel that this caregiver is everything to them. And they may have a lapse in memory and think that the caregiver has been with them forever, and they're very much willing to sign things over when the caregiver starts convincing them that they need to leave everything to them and to have them, the caregiver, manage their accounts.
Right, so that's a scary one because that is more on the grown children of the elderly person. And if you don't have paperwork and legal documents where the child has control of the elderly person's bank accounts, they may have no recourse or ability to control that. So this one is a very, very touchy subject there. So if you've watched our other videos, you know that we went to Charleston for a brief vacation. We stayed in Somerville because we know tourist areas do have higher crime rates. So one day we went down to the Charleston market, which we've always enjoyed. Once we got there, there were security guards who were getting warnings that there was a suspect that they were looking for. And I kidded Steve, I said, probably armed. And the next thing it said, do not approach the subject, he is armed and dangerous. Well, that made us a little leery right there, but we had paid our $7.09 to park, so we didn't want to leave instantly. Not too bright, huh? But as soon as we started walking through the Charleston market, a man approached me.
He wanted to sell us this, and it's pretty nice. I mean, it looks like it's a handcrafted flower. And we didn't buy this from him.
But I told him I already had one at home. My son and daughter-in-law had given me this, and I said, sorry, I have one just like it at home, so I don't need to buy this beautiful flower.
Right, so he said, you sure? And so then he launched into part B of his speech, which was that he's raising money to go to some athletic competition. And so he was trying to be very convincing, and having grown up in the city, I've seen this my whole life, and I said, no, not interested today, and we walked away. Now,
of course, being a woman and a mother and a grandmother, of course, my heart went out to him. I wanted to give him money. But Steve has taught me, do not pull out money. He could have had people watching you, and if you pull out cash, they're going to come by you when you go back to that parking lot and perhaps get the rest of your cash. Now, I thought that when he asked, does he take credit cards? He's asking for money for a donation. Does he have the ability to take a credit card? So I did hesitate. I wanted to help somebody.
Exactly. And so what that leads to, and I should share this, is that when you are in a tourist area, and you are carrying cash, and if you're going to use cash to pay for things before you leave your hotel room or your car, make sure that your larger bills are in the center of your cash. So on the outside, all you have are ones, and then after the ones goes to fives and tens, 20s, hundreds, whatever you have with you, so that you just put your hand in your pocket and you can count how many ones you have, then fives. And so if you're paying for something, you don't have to pull it all out of your pocket. You can just feel it with your hand and thumb through the cash till you get the money that you're going to use to pay. Now, it doesn't always work in all situations, but the whole idea here is to know how much money you have, how many ones, fives, what the denominations are, so that when you're going to pay for something, you don't pull it out. You just use your fingers to count the money in your pocket and just pull out what you're going to pay with.
I no longer carry a purse. After living in the big city for so many years and substitute teaching in the schools, I saw the theft from students. So I quit carrying a purse probably 10 or 15 years ago. So I only have cash in the pocket, but I do it a little bit differently. I keep cash in maybe two pockets, a small amount in one and more in the other. Of course, we don't even use a lot of cash, but if I had cash, I would do that, so I would only pull out the small amount. But being older and in a tourist area, all the red flags were going up, and we felt like it was off. So even if you were collecting for a legitimate cause, we felt vulnerable.
Exactly. So, I mean, you really have to be cautious, and you always have to be on your game. I mean, it's sad to say, but the world has changed so much, and there's a lot of people who live making money by these scams day by day. And so you have to always be aware.
Yes, I've learned a lot from living here. And actually, people try to find a connection, like, as Steve always says. So if I don't.
But that is a big point that Sue's making, and that is a connection. They always try to make a connection with you, whether it's emotional, whether it's having the same likes. It's something where they'll make you feel that you're giving to a good cause.
Some other red flags are when you're pressured to take action immediately. This is like when buying a car. They say, this deal is only good right now. Whatever they want, they say, this needs attention immediately. And don't tell anyone. Now, another one that I almost fell for was, we had work done on our house, and I didn't trust the contractors because of all the contractor scams, which I didn't even get into those. But we gave a credit card because we didn't want him to take our money and leave, which is a big thing in this area. So we gave a credit card that we could always cancel. And Amex is the best one that works with us if there's a fraudulent transaction. Okay, so he did do the work. It wasn't great work. But he then used our credit card number to buy pizza a few months after the job was done. At that point, I was able to dispute that transaction, and they gave us a new credit card. However, he did sell our credit card information to somebody. So I get emails all that said, I think the email said, click on this link, and well, it said enter your password. You think I have my passwords memorized? No, they're in a safe, secure password protector. So I instantly called Amex to ask them why they're telling me my account has been compromised or whatever it was, that there was, I think they said there was a credit line opened. I'm like, you don't open a credit line. I don't know. It was worded funny. So when I called Amex, they said, oh my gosh, cancel it. You delete that email. That is a scam. They're trying to get your information. Well, I still get that same email every 6 months. But I know exactly where it came from. It came from the person who did work on our house. And I just delete those emails. And then as a second check, I may go directly into Amex the correct way through the Amex account. Mm-hmm. And then I check if there is an issue.
So you have to be careful. I mean, the point of this video is that hopefully making you aware of all these different issues. And I'm sure we've only scratched the surface on the account. Amex
or banks would never send a link. They send messages through the mailbox, through the account. You go into the account and look at messages in the account, just like our doctors do. They would never send, like we may get an email from our doctor saying, check your account, that we have a message for you. They never send a link in another email. So that's a crucial point right there.
Yeah, and that's a big red flag if you get an email that says do this or do that for your credit card or bank account or anything like that. So you have to be careful. And the point of this video is to make you aware, is to make you think. Because this only scratches the surface. I'm sure there are many, many more scams that you've seen that you've been affected by.
If you've been scammed, you feel a whole range of emotions. It affects your mental ability quite a bit. You might feel shame, grief, and you're traumatized by this.
Once you've been scammed, you may have some additional effects of this such as increased anxiety because you feel you've been taken. You may also isolate yourself from the world because you feel you can't trust anyone. Okay. Once you've been scammed, you may have cognitive decline, increased blood pressure, anxiety, and that could cause you to self-medicate.
Once you have been scammed, you may need to take some actions. First, you may need to notify your bank to notify them of what has occurred.
You may want to notify federal agencies such as the Federal Trade Commission if you have been scammed by what you believe is a business.
You may want to inform your trusted loved ones, maybe your adult children or siblings or somebody who can help you work through this difficult time.
Okay, you may want to also notify your neighbors because this can happen to them too. You want to notify local law enforcement if it's something where people are coming up to your house or bothering you on the street. And
you may want to notify your credit bureaus. There's 3 main credit bureaus. We froze our credit years ago when we had been notified for the 100th time that our information had been compromised. I think everybody has our information the way it's been compromised. At the time we did freeze our credit, it cost us money. It cost from each bureau individually, and I don't know what we paid, maybe $3 to $5. And then to unfreeze it costs money. But I think they passed a law since then because I believe now it is free. So I would freeze your credit, and then when you're going to make a large purchase like a car or home or anything big, you have to unfreeze it. So typically you may need to unfreeze your credit to apply for a credit card, but when they made the solicitation, invited us to get a credit card, they did not require us to unfreeze our credit.
And typically,
there's also a group called Adult Protective Services that is there to help elderly people. You may want to inform them. This is a scary, scary situation, and as I said, scammers are beefing up their game, making it more and more challenging for us to be vigilant. We're not saying that we can't be scammed. I almost fell for the Amex one. If I know my password, I might have fallen for it.
Wow. Yes. So be careful, be aware, and don't trust anyone that you don't know.
I mean, we find now that we've gotten to the other extreme where we go places and we're so guarded from all the incidences that have happened around our house that we're like, we don't really trust people anymore. So in a way, we have put up those walls.
If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe. We appreciate that. Also hit the like button and notifications and include your comments. We want to hear what you think.
Until we see you again.
Take it easy.